Yeah, no, we don't have to release the podcast. I think that is a good idea. Release it kind of like on a schedule. Like that's cool because not the same people view. I know like Gary Wagner and his wife, they only do the YouTube.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, it's totally different. Got it. We are live on YouTube.
Hey guys, welcome. It's been a while, but we are back. And do we have a great night ahead, man?
Fun night, a long night.
A long night, yeah. We're gonna burn the midnight oil tonight on a minus 20 something winter
night. It is cold out there.
Yeah, it is.
Holy moly, is it cold out there.
You're going to Florida.
Getting colder.
You're going to Florida, so.
I'm not going to Florida. I'm going to Hawaii.
Well, I hope it freezes.
Yeah, well.
Traitor.
Oh, shit. It's not going to. I checked. It's going to be beautiful.
Well, let's get everything rolling here. So we'll get her up and welcome to the Fan's Perspective. I am Tyson.
I'm Josh.
And we are back for 2024. This is our first
actual show.
Yeah, well, we have morning shows every morning, or most mornings when we can do it. But this is our first set of interviews, I guess.
And, in a while.
So we had a nice Christmas break and wishing everyone a happy new year. And we're back at her. And boy, do we have a night for you tonight. So starting us off here shortly, we got one of the gentlemen from the Outlaw Buckers rodeo stock. So we're going to talk horses. We're going to talk bulls. We're going to talk NFR, PBR, all the above. Rodeo. So that will be cool. And then at 9:00, the one, the only Robin Silvernagle will be joining us, the Saskatchewan curler. So we're excited to have her on. Mom with 2 young kids, and she's probably going to give us a couple jabs.
Could you imagine being a parent and having to be a professional athlete?
What do you mean?
I can't even be a parent.
I live it every
day.
I'm not.
I don't
know what you're talking about. Like,
we are not athletes, Tyson, as much as we'd like to be. We are not athletes,
man.
We aren't mathletes, for God's sake.
Speak for yourself.
Hey, and I am speaking for myself, but you are tied in there. You are not an athlete. I am not an athlete.
Every day I look at the TV and I'm watching a sporting event, I think, like, I could do that.
No problem. I agree. There's a lot of those athletes I could probably do just as good as, but we're not. Here we are.
Crush me like it's only January.
Sorry, but we're couch quarterbacks, like it's.
Hey, let's get into some local sports before we get into the show, before Jonathan wires in here. But Medicine Hat Tigers did what we thought. They stayed the path today.
Yep.
Traded a couple players off one was off their roster, Evan May, the goalie, to Moose Jaw for draft picks.
Yep.
And another player that was not signed and not playing with the Tigers, they also traded him.
Okay, I did not see any of that.
To Vancouver, yeah. So Willie is stockpiling for next year because those draft picks will move on when he needs pieces.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And they didn't need anything big, let's be honest.
No. And last loaded up and Swift Current loaded up.
Okay.
It's going to be a fun run. I'm a little leery about Swift Current because I didn't think they had the team to load up. So.
Yeah, you said that the other night, but they must see something different.
Well, I think they want playoff money.
Yeah, I understand that.
For a small market team too.
It is. And actually, I saw Megan had a friend at the game the other day and sent me a picture during the game.
Yeah.
And there was nobody there.
At Swift Current.
In Swift Current. That's really shitty. That's a small town. Why aren't they going to the game? They're not a bad team. They're not bottom of the barrel. They're pretty decent. Let's be honest. Second highest scoring team. Is that right?
Yes. Next to the Medicine Hat Tigers.
Next to the Medicine Hat Tigers. Why isn't everybody that lives there going to the damn game? It can't be expensive. I'm sure tickets are super affordable.
Thanks to our premier, though, PST and stuff on there. Like $23 plus tax, like as if they don't charge us enough PST.
That is true. It's on everything. On everything. But get to the games. Go out. That's ridiculous.
It should be good.
It would be good hockey.
Connor Geeky coming to town. They got a Dvorak kid who they signed from Europe is on the team now, and they traded for a defenseman today. So,
and if you're the second highest scoring team, it's gonna be fast paced hockey.
And 2 new defensemen who are very good. So
right on.
That'll help their goals against, and their goalie's been playing very well.
Yeah, they've got a good goaltender. Yeah,
two actually, because Their backup's been running the last while. Their starter was hurt. So.
Well, then look out, WHL, because goaltending is not easy to find.
Yeah, and that's what exactly. It's funny you said that because we had the conversation one of the morning shows that was Moose Jaw's weakest link, and here they go get Evan May.
Find a goalie. Yeah. Makes sense.
And Medicine Hat's going with 2 young guys.
Yeah,
and
I like it.
Zahara and I'm trying to think of the other guy, but
I really like
McClellan or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
yeah,
and they're good.
Oh yeah, very good. They fit the Tigers' timeline.
Yeah,
Zahara's only 16.
They got such a young team. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, they kind of remind myself of me.
Yeah, real young athletic. Yeah, just like me too. Yeah,
flexible. Like I could pretty much do the splits at will.
Funny story. I fell down the stairs right before we came here. So
you were stretching.
No, completely just old. My eyes don't work, and I missed the top stair. I texted Megan from the floor, and I said she's at the arena
at the bottom.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And I said, if you notice, like all the coats are off there, everything. I'm limping out of the house. I said, my pride's hurt. Everything's hurt. Thank God no one saw this. But I just fell down the stairs. My bad pride was broken. Nobody was there, but I was like, the hell was I doing? How did I miss the top stair? And my foot was throbbing. I looked to make sure the foot was faced the right direction. Nothing was broke.
I come rescued you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I believe hey, we got something in common because I think I had an injury on the barn show that we had way back when in the
You did. You were hurting though.
Oh, I did.
Mine was a stinger.
Well, mine was a stinger.
Yeah, yours lasted though. Mine, by the time I got halfway out here, the burning sensation on the bottom of my foot was gone, and here I am.
I thought I tore an Achilles that time.
Yep, but, I remember it very well.
Yeah,
I smoked a stogie in that barn.
Yeah, well, we'll have another barn show coming up here at you.
It's almost that time again.
Almost that time, yeah.
Hopefully it's warmer than tonight.
Yes. Well, this weekend. Did you see that? Like minus 50?
Starting tomorrow night.
I know.
Shit's gonna get real.
I know. It's gonna be bad. So time for me to fly the coop, I think.
Yeah. Well, come to Hawaii with us.
Yeah, I will.
Come to Hawaii.
Sounds good.
Tara can come.
How big is your suitcase?
It's not that big.
Oh, that's too bad.
But we can buy a seat.
But you probably noticed I've lost.
Yeah, Tyson has lost some weight. Yeah. I'm trying to lose some weight. Tyson has lost some. So.
I did. The trouble is I lost 10 and found 15.
Yeah, well, Christmas. I used to lose weight for Christmas just because I knew how much I was going to gain. But this year,
it's a bitch when everything's out there in front of you and you're, wow, I'm kind of full, but your hands.
Are you kidding me? There's chocolates here. Then Megan always has like a Nutter's tray, everything.
Yeah. So just for you, just for the ones at home just joining us, Jonathan, I believe it's Kmita. We'll clarify the last name, but he'll be joining us from Outlaw Buckers momentarily, and we're going to talk once again about some rodeo, some raising of some rough stock, and Saskatchewan kid, both Saskatchewan tonight. Yeah. Curler, 9:00. We're going to have Robin Silvernagel join us. So great night.
Yeah, it's going to be a great night.
And Jonathan is coming aboard as we speak. So here we go.
Right on.
That will be great. Well, we'll ask him how warm it is down in the east part of Saskatchewan. I imagine it's probably balmy.
Probably suntan weather.
Usually would be down in that way.
Yeah, more rain.
They get a lot of Chinooks I hear.
Yeah, that's what especially in these cold snaps from Siberia.
Can you imagine being an animal outside in these conditions?
No, I can't, man.
Like standing in the wind and your only source of heat is food.
Yeah.
I could do well with that part of it.
Yeah, I could if I gotta eat to maintain, I'm good, but no.
So we're just waiting for Jonathan to join us.
Too much.
Oh, and there he is. Can you hear us, Jonathan?
Oh, we can't hear him.
I think you're on mute yet. I don't know if you can hear us.
He is on mute, I believe.
Oh, I think we got you now.
Oh.
There we go.
Even.
We can now.
How's she going tonight?
Well, she's getting a little frosty out there.
Well, welcome to the Fans Perspective, and I'm Tyson. I'm the one that's been kind of sending you the messages off and on here, and
I'm Jeff.
yeah, and we're proud to have you on here tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited to be on here.
You betcha, you betcha. So we're going to get right into it. You're from the Outlaw Buckers, pro rodeo contracting company for stock.
Yes, sir.
And you got bulls, horses, you name it. So we got a lot to cover, and we'll get right into it. So you were at the NFR this year. How was that experience?
Oh, it's awesome to be at, the biggest rodeo in North America, in front of that crowd that's there. It's so electric inside that building. Like, it's one of those buildings that you kind of got to experience in order to, get the full effect of it. Like, watching it on TV, it's pretty cool, but to be right in that building, especially, down on the arena level behind the chutes, and I can't imagine that, like those guys nodding their head there for that excitement to be there. It's exciting for us contractors to be there, but I can't imagine the contestants that adrenaline that must be pumping through you when you get there.
Well, I can only imagine that. And then when you're getting on the stock that you contractors provide, like, you got the best of the best there in Vegas, and there's lots of money on the line. So it's got to be probably a little nerve-wracking, a little bit of excitement, every emotion you can probably think of.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't know whether the first time you're there, you wouldn't know whether to shit wind your watch or steal third.
So I'm going to get into the question before we talk about the Vegas. Day one, all that shit goes down at the UNLV school site with the shooting and everything. What was that like for you? I don't know if you were there at that time or whatever, but take us through that day if you were. And we may have lost him. I'm not sure.
Froze up.
Froze up. Okay, there we got you. I can hear you, but you're froze, but we can keep on a rolling anyways if we can hear you.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties. The joy of
Saskatchewan internet.
Yeah. And it could, I don't know whose end it is necessarily, but
yeah, who knows? Either way, Saskatchewan internet is a sad thing, people.
Yes,
if you haven't experienced it, come visit.
Yeah, take your city internet.
Yeah. And
he's reconnected.
He'll be back.
Take your city internet and divide by 100 and subtract probably 10 more.
And then throw it against the wall and see if it still works.
Yeah. And that is us.
The other day I called SaskTel angry because I paid for a certain amount. I did a test. I had a 10th.
There you are. You're back.
Hey, boss.
Yeah, I seen it froze up. I kind of figured this was going to happen. Our quality rural internet.
Well, that's our good SaskTel government there.
Yeah.
So I'll get back. I don't know if you heard the question, but day one was pretty crazy in Vegas there with the cancellation of the show and the shootings on the UNLV grounds there. But were you there that day?
Yeah, we were. We got there on the Monday. The stock got there the Friday prior. Had a couple of my buddies haul them down. So first thing we thought of was because there's a bunch of guys were going down because that's where we get our credentials. It's right close to, well, it's right on the campus first. And that's where we get all our credentials to get behind the chutes and stuff. So we didn't know, we knew a bunch of our friends were going down there about that time. And then we knew that Jared and Jordan were in the arena doing grand entry rehearsal. So we knew there was lots of people down there. We weren't sure what was going on. We just heard there was a shooting and there was 3 to 5 dead. And so it was kind of a bit of a nerve-wracking situation there for a bit.
Yeah, I can only imagine what must be going through your mind at that time, not knowing really any information, whether your friends and family are safe or not, or it had to be terrifying at the time.
Yeah, it was. Like I say, there's so many unknowns, and you're trying to, well, of course, trying to get a hold of somebody to see, and I'm sure they were trying to get a hold of their family that are all doing the same thing, right? They're hearing about it. So
Yeah.
lots of text messages and phone calls and stuff that were going on.
Yeah, and there was a lockdown for, what was it, a couple hours where they locked everyone down in the arena?
Yeah, that's the boys said that they were probably a little over 2 hours in the dressing room. They were locked in there.
Yeah, so what a way to start the rodeo off,
Crazy.
like everyone's excited, ready to get things going, and then that happens, and the reality of our world sets in pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. We weren't even sure, if it was going to be delayed a day or, totally canceled or, there were so many uh, rumors out there and everything that we didn't really know exactly what was going to go on. That the powers that be hadn't really got together and formulated a game plan. So, of course, you know how the internet gets rolling and everybody's got an idea and everybody knows what's going on, but nobody has a clue what's going on.
Yeah, especially if CBC's reporting it,
Right.
Anyway,
believe none of what you see and half of what you hear.
yeah, exactly. Let's get to the NFR and you guys, the Outlaw Buckers in particular. How many stock did you have down there, and what did you have down there? Bulls, horses, combo of both?
Yeah, I had one bareback horse, 3 broncs, and 3 bulls.
Wow.
So that was pretty impressive to have, that many animals. I think, I can't remember, I counted how many separate contractors, and I thought there was like 68 or something different contractors that brought stock there. And I think there was only 12 or 13 that had more stock than we did. So
right on.
It was a pretty cool thing to have that out of all the contractors in North America, 310 animals that are there, that we had, 7 of them. So it was pretty cool.
That is pretty amazing.
That's crazy.
From Saskatchewan, from Canada, and the biggest show on dirt, basically the highest dollared show in North America, right there at the NFR. That congratulations to you. I'll just get that out there right now.
Wicked.
Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate that. You never know how it's going to go throughout the year. You hope, the animals throughout the year, because they have to buck 8 times in order to qualify to go to Vegas. And then the top 15 cowboys get to vote on which top 100 bulls, top 100 saddle broncs, and top 100 barebacks get to go. So you kind of hope that your matchups during the year, that they perform well at the right times at the big rodeos, so that they get noticed, right? And like, I got a horse, Lunatic Party. That was her 13th trip to Vegas. So everybody kind of knows her. So, but still at the same time, nothing's ever a shoe-in, right? I mean, I've had some go 1 time. I've had some go, 4 or 5 times. Sometimes they'll skip a year. And once they don't go once, it's hard to get them to go back there.
Yeah. So take us to the arrival of Vegas. What goes on when you get there with the stock, and all the care that goes into the stock throughout the performances?
Yeah, so when we get there, they have a list of all the contractors that are coming and make sure that, those are the right animals that are there. They check their brands. You have to have your ownership brand and their number brand on them. Then they check all their paperwork to make sure all their health paperwork is correct. Then they put their own back tag numbers on them, so that when they go to get them out of the pen, they don't have to trying to read brands or whatever. They can read that NFR sticker that's on them, and they know, okay, I need horse 1, 2, 3 or whatever the number is on that sticker. Yep. And then they just go roll in there. So what they normally do is in the morning they'll feed grain, and then whatever animals have to perform that night, they'll take them, exercise them, and then they go sort them off to go down to the building. Then the rest of them, they'll come back. Once they get all that done, then they come back and they'll exercise all the rest of them, check them over, make sure they're all that. And then later on, they'll feed them the hay, whatever. And then when they come back, they'll get fed again and looked after for the night.
So you guys ain't down there just for the show. This is work for you guys as well when you're down there.
Well, it's kind of nice down there. They kind of spoil a guy because they do all the feeding and all the sorting and all the exercising. So you can go down there, but they really don't want us getting in the pens and, monkeying with them and getting in their way and stuff. So it is kind of nice. It is kind of a holiday. If you don't want to go down and look at your stock, The only time you'll see them is when they're in the buck chute, and that's it.
No,
Really?
that's crazy.
Yeah. So it's kind of neat that way. That it's weird for us because we do it all year long, and then you go there and it's kind of awkward. You're like, should I be here? Shouldn't I be here? Kind of deal. So yeah,
Dave,
it's kind of
when
neat
you
that
deliver,
way. So, if you go out on the town and come back a little late at night and don't want to get up in the morning, you don't have to.
So then day one, you deliver the animal and you're kind of done with it till it's over. Is that kind of
pretty much? Yeah. Like if you don't want to go down and see them, if you take, that they trust them that they're going to do right by your animal, and they got an emergency contact thing if anything goes wrong with them, or if they look off, whatever, they'll let a guy know. So yeah, we usually go, every couple of days just to make sure that they're drinking and they're looking good, and that nothing seems off with them. The first probably 4 or 5 days they're there because they're there just about a week before the rodeo, so you're there kind of every day, make sure that they settle in, and then once kind of the rodeo starts, you're busy doing your own thing, so you might go every couple of days, or depends on your schedule is anyway.
Yeah, and I imagine it's like everything else. They got the best of the best for caretakers there, for the animal stock and the animal athletes, as well as all the human performers.
Oh, absolutely. A top-notch show like that, everybody's cowboy and everybody's a top hand there, so you don't have to worry about much. You don't stress about what's going on around there anyway.
Yeah. So we're going to take you back now. You've been to Vegas. You're at the highlight. You're at the top end. You're working your way always to improve and everything. But where did this idea come? When did you start the Outlaw Buckers?
Well, it started before me, but I bought in 2009. Some other of my buddies were in on it, and a guy wanted out. And I was actually still competing then. I was still riding bareback horses and team roping and stuff. And I was trying to figure out, at that time I was 39, and I'm like, well, I was getting a little long in the tooth to be a bareback rider and stuff. I wanted to still stay involved in rodeo. And so they said, well, here's an opportunity. Do you want to get in on it? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So I bought in 2009, and it was kind of how we got to be Outlaw Buckers was there was a bunch of guys that were kind of subcontracting to another main contractor, and then we decided that we're all just going to pool our resources together and become one company, and we were better together than we were kind of separated and apart. So
yeah, that's a pretty cool story. So you've been at it a while. The resources or the genetics keep getting better and better, and I assume you got quite the breeding program going on there at the ranch for yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't take long to, when you're, breeding 15, 20 mares a year, and all of a sudden, by the time they're 3, 4, 5 years old, all of a sudden you got, like right now at home here, I think this spring when I trimmed their feet and everything, I had 85 horses under the age of 5.
wow.
So they collect pretty quickly, and, so you're kind of just trying to train them and learn them into the game of rodeo. So, that part of it's really fun, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of resources to do that. The rodeo side of things, you're busy, and you get to go to the Calgary Stampedes and the Pendleton Oregons and those big rodeos and the Pinokas and that. It's a lot of fun, but winter time's usually when we kind of slow down a little bit and then kind of get busy doing that.
Okay, and I'm glad you talked about training because we're going to get into that a little bit. But from the time they drop as a baby till they get to the rodeo arena, what is all involved in preparing the animals to get from, like I said, dropping on the ground to that rodeo arena?
Oh, yeah, it's quite a process. From the time they drop on the ground, we try and always, my program anyway, everybody's different. Everybody's got their own take on, how they want to raise and train their horses. That's the beauty of the industry, is that there's no right way and there's no wrong way, right? It's what you feel comfortable with, your experience with it. And so a lot of times what we'll do is we'll go out there and hand feed the mares grain, interact with the mares and the colts, and then a lot of times I'll bring them in the corral, sort them off, get handling them so they're used to being handled. And then once you wean them, I usually put them in a small pen, and same thing, hand feed them grain so they're used to being around you. They're pretty spooky when you first kind of come off the mares, so they kind of want to run you over or run away from you or whatever. Some are quiet, everyone's individual. It's kind of neat that way when you just see the personalities start coming out in them. Like it's most everything they do is kind of reacting to their mom, and then when you pull them off their mom, they all, start, interacting together and interacting with you more. And so it's kind of a neat process. You try and handle them a little bit, and everybody's got their own theory. Like I don't usually try and start training them a whole bunch, as far as bucking wise. Like we'll put them in the chute, make everything kind of a positive experience for them. So, they kind of handle it. So if it's positive, they react to it positive. If it's a negative experience, and one thing about a horse, it never forgets, right? So
yeah,
that's the thing. You kind of want to idle it along so they take it at their own speed and they learn and they understand kind of what you're expecting of them. And then, it just helps that through the whole process from the time then all the way to when they get into the rodeo arena to bucking. So typically what I do is as a long 2-year-old, 3-year-old, depending on their size, we got a little, we call it a dummy. It's a remote control box.
Yeah, I've seen
them. Put it on
them,
their back and cinch it down on them. And then we'll take the flank, and it's essentially just when you pull the flank, kind of what the idea of the flank is. When you pull it, it's not to pull it real tight. It's just to tickle them enough. It's just tight enough that it won't fall off, but they don't like anything around their flank. So what they want to do is when they kick, they get smaller at their flank. So then the pressure on the flank releases. So they think they kicked it off, and they come back down, and then it tickles them again, and they kick it. Most horses will, buck and play, and that's their natural action, right? So what we're trying to do is just accentuate that they get to learn that every jump you want them to kick. And so then you try and time it it's on a remote. So you just hit the button, and the dummy flies off and trips the flank. So like when they kick, you try and time it so that they kick it off. Like, oh, okay, that's what I do to get this thing off. I keep bucking, and if I keep bucking, then that thing gets off my back. And and so it's quite a process to take them through that, and then once you go through that and you kind of feel comfortable that they're ready to have a live rider on their back, then usually, find some test pilots to come get on them. Either, sometimes we'll get them out of school. Sometimes we have a practice pen where we can take them and guys will come get on them and see, because it's a totally different deal. Once you put a live human on them, it totally changes it. Like there's some that really buck hard with the dummy, but when you put a person on them, it totally changes their mindset and the whole game plan. So then they kind of scramble. And some that weren't maybe that good with the dummy, all of a sudden they're the buckers. And, so you can never really tell. The dummy, it's kind of an indication they'll buck, but there's no guarantee that once you put a live guy on them that they will buck. Okay. So then that's usually 2, 3. Then you'll kind of bring them back again as 4-year-olds and kind of do the same thing. If they're big enough, you can start putting riders on them if they can handle the weight and stuff as 4-year-olds. And, then by the time they're 5, they're kind of going to start hitting the trail. And the hard part with a horse is that, physically they're not mature till they're 5. So it's a long, slow process to get them to that stage in life where you don't even know what you have. Even at 5 years old, you think you got a world beater, but till they start going down the road, you really don't know. And it's kind of fun to see them develop, and also it's kind of disheartening at the same time if they don't turn out how you had that vision for them.
Yeah, because you got a lot of time invested in each animal by the time they would hit the road then.
Oh, absolutely. And some of the biggest things is just, as young horses, and same thing, they can be a little wilder until you get them calmed down a little bit. Like they're hard on themselves and hard on each other. And, so it's trying to keep them all going in the same direction and everything. So yeah, it's quite the process to go through to get them to, you say 5 years is, you got to have a lot of patience.
Yeah, and that's why you're feeding 85, because some pan out, some don't, and
right.
Yeah. So do you ever know when you have one that that is like the Connor McDavid of the athlete, like that one's going to make it?
Yeah, like there's the superstars, they kind of, kind of right off the hop, just the way, like, I got well, she'd be a 7-year-old now. Like, she went to her first Canadian finals last year as a 6-year-old, but right from the first time I bucked her, she just stood out head and shoulders above the rest, and she's kind of, always been that way. So you kind of, but like you say, you never know how, once you start pouring the diesel smoke and put them on the truck and start hauling them around the country, how they all react to, different arenas and different atmospheres. And so, yeah, you kind of see that they got the potential, but you never know the longevity.
Yeah, for sure.
Stay.
For sure. And what do you look for when you're doing your breeding program? Are you doing some AI in? Are you got your own studs kind of there, or what are you doing there?
A little everything, like it kind of takes, in my opinion, the way I'm kind of approaching it is, it takes that, like, the big problem, like when I first got into it, was you're so busy going down the road, going to these rodeos, that I kind of forgot about that step in the process, is having a good breeding program. We kind of sold off a bunch of our brood mares, and it took me a couple of years to get gathered up. So you had that gap in there, and you realized that you were, I was doing some of the AI stuff and flushing embryos and doing that stuff because you wanted to be able to take these mares and buck them. And of course, in Canada, it's not very advantageous to be trying pulling out in February, March.
Sure.
So you got to wait till May, June, and then that's when the rodeos are coming. So then, yeah, they got to pack the mare with the colt, or wait till that colt's old enough to wean it, and then pack the mare. And then by that time you do that, the rodeo season's over. So you kind of got to do a little bit of everything with it. And some mares will travel with the colts and do good, and some, especially when them colts get bigger and they start taking, more of the flesh, like the mares will kind of start putting so much into their milk that their body condition will go down a little bit when them colts get bigger. So it's kind of tough to keep that balancing act where they're, healthy enough that they're going to buck at their peak performance, but yet still looking after their colt. You kind of go the other way too, where they stop producing milk, and then a colt can, suffer that way of not getting the nutrients he needs.
For sure. So is there any difference? Well, there probably is a difference, but for our viewers out there, from starting the bulls to the horses, you look at things and do things differently, or kind of similar?
It's kind of similar, like with the young calves, same thing. It's a little bit quicker process with them, because typically by the time they're, 3, you can start putting riders on them. But same thing, you try and handle them, you dummy them kind of the same.
Yep.
Everything, and like I say, and then once you put the live guys on them, it all changes too, right? And so you try and just get them where they kind of get a pattern, and you notice little things they do, like when you go back and watch your videos, like, oh, we got to come out and he was in, this lead, and we wanted to turn back to the right, but he was in the left lead, so he kind of crossed himself up. So you switch deliveries on him, and just different little things you kind of see once you've been in it for a while. You kind of know where, and like I say, a lot of it is having patience too, because some of them might not buck right off the bat, but you don't quite give up on them just because of one try, right? You kind of keep going. Like going back to, like, I purchased Lunatic Party at the NFR Bucking Horse sale, and the guy that sold her to me said, yeah, well, he said, as a colt coming up, she was just okay, like he said. And a friend of his wanted some, a little bit weaker horses for his college rodeos. He said, these guys don't ride that good. He said, so he says, you have anything like that? He says, yeah, I'll bring this paint mare. So he takes her, to this college rodeo thinking that she's just a bloop. And she jumps out there and bucks through her ass and wallpapers this poor kid. And the guy looks at it and says, "What the hell was that? I thought it was supposed to be bloop." He said, "I did." He said, so then he took her to a practice pen a couple of weeks later, and she did the same thing, just out there and just wallpapered some poor kid. He's like, "Well, I better put her in the sale if she's going to buck like that." And the day that he bucked her at the sale, she actually fell down. She was trying to buck so hard, she fell down, and everybody kind of ooh. And so we end up buying her, and and so she turned into a superstar. But you know, you never know, right? So he was to the point that he said, "I just was going to give up on her because she was not going to. I never thought she was going to make a professional level type horse. That she might have been, you know, a good amateur horse or something, but you never thought that she'd go to 13 NFRs the day he sold her."
Oh, and that is just how it is, right? You, like you said earlier, you don't know necessarily.
Yeah, and that's, you know, it, like you say, it's all on your perspective on how you look at it. It's either frustrating or it's really exciting to kind of keep going with the process and don't give up on what your vision is for your animals. And that's kind of
for sure. So, do you guys do you do any of the futurities that are in the United States at all?
I haven't. I've dabbled in it a little bit, but it's the same time like we're rodeoing. Like if to go into them futurities, it's kind of the same time we're rodeoing, so it's tough to do both unless you got somebody you can dedicate just to go to the futurities and take them colts. Like a lot of times, you know, we'll kick them colts out on grass, so then you got to go gather them and sort them off and take the ones you want to take. And so they got to keep them closer to home. And like when we're gone so much in the summer, you don't really have that luxury of having them close to the house where you got enough grass there to run them close. But
yeah, I get that. So how many guys are involved then in the outlaw buckers with yourself?
Well, there's only 3 of us left now. There was at one time there was 6 of us.
Okay.
Over the years, just like my one old partner, he passed away about 6 or 7 years ago, and then a couple other guys just wanted out of the business, so we bought them out. And then my old bull partner 2 years ago, he decided he wanted out, so then Nansen Vold and I partnered up on the bulls, and then one of the old original guys, old Bob Bear, he's still in it with me, so it's down to the 3 of us. So.
Oh, nice. That's pretty cool that you guys all work together. And it sounds like there's a lot of work anyways, more than enough to go around.
Oh, for sure. You know, and then more hands make less work, I guess. So, you know, it kind of works that way. Yeah, it's a great bunch of guys. You know, same thing. It's, you know, you're not going to get rich doing this, but it's sure a great lifestyle. And if you treat it like a business, it'll treat you back like a business. And that's kind of the way I approach it. That, you know, you try and put everything you can into it, try and put your best foot forward. And
yeah, for sure. So when it's January, whatever today, 10th, when do you guys start going down the road then?
Well, we got some PBR bull ridings come up here in February, March. We'll go to them. The horse thing, like I've been kind of toying with the idea to go down to Texas for that winter run, and you know, go down to, you know, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Houston, that kind of run. But same thing, right? To go on that winter run, you got to commit a lot of time to it, and you're gone for 6, 8, 9 weeks, and when you're still at home trying to run a couple businesses and stuff and trying to look after animals, you know, it's a tough deal to try and be a professional cowboy all year long. You know, it'd be nice to do, but it's not always, you know,
doable.
The schedule.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, if you got a family or whatever, you can't necessarily take them with you all the time either. So it's, you know, it's a big commitment for what you do.
Right. You know, Jared and I were just talking on the phone yesterday about, you know, what his future aspirations are as far as rodeo goes. You know, that's what he said is the biggest thing for him now. Now he's been the NFR 2 times. That he's like, I don't know where my commitment lies. Like he said, I've chased the yellow buck and shoots, and I've proved to myself I've got there twice, and I've had success there now. He said I might, you know, think about closing that chapter, and my commitment is, to Canada, and I can stay in Canada, still make lots of money riding bulls. Riding bulls is the fun part, and same thing with rodeo and like bucking horses and bulls. Like bucking them, the fun part. It's that many hours behind the wheel of a semi that start to wear on a guy over time, right? And it's the travel that gets to you. And if it was, if you could go, that's where we're spoiled too. Like in Canada, even like. I keep my horses in Alberta in the summertime just so it's easier on them. And so it's, a long ways is 4-hour trek. So you don't spend a whole lot of time on the road. Like, so you start going to the U.S. rodeos, like when we go on the Northwest run and in the fall there, you go to a couple different places in Washington. You go to Kennewick and Ellensburg and Puyallup with bulls, and then go to Caldwell, Idaho with horses, and then Pendleton, Oregon for horses and bulls, and so you get traveling around, making a lot more miles where it's a couple-day trek, and kind of that's what by the end of the year you're, especially me traveling from Saskatchewan to Alberta all the time, that's the drive that about finishes you off. Is
well,
you drive 7 hours and then you get to go rodeoing.
Yeah, you're on the far east side of Saskatchewan there, not very far east of Weyburn, if I'm correct.
Yeah, no, not very far. A couple miles east of Weyburn is where my parents' place is.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I was talking to a friend today, Chris Sanderson, and I was telling him about the podcast, and he said, telling him we have you on tonight. I know him. He said, great guy.
Yeah, I haven't seen him forever.
Yeah, no, we're on our local RM together, and then I don't know how it came up. We start talking about the podcast, anyways, and I had mentioned that I'm having you on tonight, or we're having you on tonight. And then he said, "Yeah, he knows you," and he told me where you are, so where the family ranch was, and I said, "Well, I drove by there many times. Then I've been east of Weyburn, but." You don't know until you're told.
That's right.
Yeah. So what's just go ahead.
I said living in Weyburn, a friend of mine was coming down here to work, and I said, "Well, you're really lucky." I said, "There's a pretty girl behind every tree." So he was all excited when he got down there. And he's like, "There's no trees." And I said,
"Exactly." So you got winter down there? Like you got much snow or anything?
Well, we had a little skip of snow. It's been snowing here the last couple of days, and then the wind was pretty raw today, and it's supposed to be like with the wind chill minus 45 to 50 here on the weekend. So yeah, we all of a sudden got winter.
So you won't be doing no training in the next little bit anyways.
No, that was kind of what my game plan was for January, was to get a bunch of this handled, but I don't think I want to be venturing out, putting animals in the trailer and driving up and down the highway when it's 45 below.
No kidding. No kidding. I kind of am on your side, but I had a question when you were talking about you did the Northwest run and of course you're on the Canadian side of the border. What's all involved, paperwork and all that, to get the horses across the border?
Well, we got to do a blood test. It's called a Coggins test. So they take the blood, send it to a lab, and then comes back, and then you got to get the federal vet to give you health papers that are only good for 30 days to cross the border. And then we got to go through a broker because they started making us broker across the border. So then we got to phone the broker, tell them how many animals we're taking, where we're going. So when you get to the border, you pull up there, give them your broker papers. Then you got to go in, they check over your health papers. Then if you take bulls, well, they got to get another test depending on what state you're going to. So some states you got to do a trick test. Just all depends where you're going. And so then, but with bovine, you got to see the vet. So you got to make a vet appointment, and then you can't be late for your vet appointment, or you get to the end of the line, you might not have any more appointments that day. So yeah, it's quite involved to get across the border, and so yeah, it's quite the process to do it. But you kind of got to do some logistics planning before, a week or two before you even go, just get all the blood work done and get your vets lined up and all that kind of stuff. So
That's crazy. And is that every time you cross the border then, or are they allowed for so many days that you can cross with them, or?
See, your Coggins is good for 6 months for a horse.
Yep.
So all you have to do is, if your health paperwork runs out in those 30 days, then you can cross back and forth. You typically, just depends on when you cross the border or what agent you get, if they really let you go. But typically, you're supposed to be able to cross in those 30 days on those health papers. With the bulls, you got to see the vet every time on both sides, the American side and on the Canadian side.
Wow.
So it's a huge commitment. If you're crossing the border, you want to be doing some rodeos down there with the animals. You're not crossing for one rodeo and coming back.
Yeah, I do it, but yeah, you kind of got to have the numbers. Like, if I'm going to go just for one rodeo, I want to be taking like 24 heads, so it pays to go down there. You don't want to just take a handful and go down, because it costs anywhere from $150 to $200 an animal to get all the blood work done, the health paperwork done,
the
broke paperwork done. By the time you get all that done, well, if you're only taking 5 or 6 animals, you're $200 into each animal. There's $1,200, and if you're only getting $400 an animal at the rodeo, well, you just spent half your paycheck before you even left home. So that time you had the fuel on it, rent a hotel room, pay for some feed. You're breaking the bank before you even get to the rodeo sometimes. So yeah, you kind of got to play the numbers game. So yeah, if you're gonna go, you kind of want to hit a series of rodeos in them 30 days so you can get a better paycheck in the time you're gone.
For sure. And you mentioned federal vet, and that's a very key word, because not every vet can do that paperwork that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right. It's only certain federal vets that are located at the border that, and that can be an issue too, is when you send the paperwork, they might take 2 or 3 days, depending how busy they are, before they look at it, stamp it, and send it back to you. So, there's a lot of, unknowns sometimes in the logistics planning and how many days out you got it. And that's the thing, is most of your paperwork, once it's stamped with a date, that's the date you're committed to, right? So you don't want to go too early, but you don't want to go too late where you're panicking that you haven't got the paperwork and you're supposed to be crossing the border the next day.
Yeah.
For
sure. So the 2024 season is going to be starting here. So do the organizations reach out to you for the stock, start booking, or how does that work? Are you looking to book into certain rodeos, or how does that whole process work?
Yeah, typically the rodeo committees hire the stock contractor. So some of the rodeos I'll do solely as outlaw buckers, but like the big ones like Ponoka, Calgary Stampede, Pendleton, and all that ones that go in the Northwest run, they'll bring like 6 or 7 different contractors. So they'll contract us by numbers. They'll say, hey, you guys got some good stock. Can you bring me 15 horses and 7 bulls? Kind of make a trailer load that way. So, it's kind of a little of both, where we go to these big rodeos with a subcontractor, and then we produce some of our own rodeos all by ourselves.
Okay. So you got a lot of organization. You must have someone who's very good at organizing, because you got stuff going left, right, center, and every direction.
Oh, yeah. It takes a village to do it all, right? It takes lots of guys, because sometimes you have 2, 3, 4 trucks on the road at a time. So to find enough drivers, enough guys going here and there. It's good to have friends that want to come and do it with you. So, those guys help out a lot, and it's kind of nice to have. You can go drink a few beers and tell a few bullshit stories and have a little fun doing it. Because if it's not fun, there's no sense doing it.
No, I was just going to say that at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, it's a damn job. And
right.
When it's a job, it ain't that much fun.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that is pretty interesting. And it is a long season. Like, you start going early, obviously, if you're doing bulls in February and the NFR is December, like, that is a marathon of rodeos.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of downtime. The horse side is a little less intensive as the bulls, but it is a lot of fun doing it, you know, but yeah, you don't have a lot of downtime. So you enjoy it when you get it, and you just roll with it as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So the comment I always hear, you're listening to a lot of these rodeo announcers and stuff, and everyone raves that the horse bucking stock in Canada is second to none. I want your comments on that, what you see out there, and why is it that we got so many great bucking stock horses up here north of the border?
You know, I think part of it is, you know, they got to be tough to survive a winter, you know,
Yeah.
in Canada, you know, so they're hardy animals to begin with just to survive, let alone, you know, whether it's your saddle horse or whether it's a bucking horse, you know, if any animal in Canada, if you could survive a Canadian winter, you're a hardy beast. So I think that's part of it, bit of environment, you know, genetics. We've always had good genetics in Canada, and uh, you know, there's been a lot of years of guys trying to perfect the crosses that you see with different, you know, studs and mares and everything. And you know, there's a lot of guys that are passionate about it, and that's a big thing. Is that the more people get interested, the more passion you get behind it, and the more people want to do it. It seems like you kind of get the right mixture of enough guys doing it that you get the cream rises to the top, and like you say, the more you got going, then you get more cream.
So bulls in particular, if you were to buy something, say down in the States, and bring it back and introduce it to our weather, what do you have to go through with them, and do you have to baby them quite a bit? Because I mean, the crosses that the bucking bulls are bred to, I mean, it's not like they're used to the Canadian weather climate.
Yeah, that's a big thing. You know, like there's been a couple times where, you know, we've bought a couple bulls down there, and you know, you kind of almost got to leave them there and bring them, and then let them kind of experience the fall and everything. And you got to go look at how they're haired up, how they're bred. You know, if they're, you know, a full Brammer, well, you know, they better be real fat when they go into winter because they don't get a lot of hair. You know, so just kind of see what, you know, what kind of their coat condition is. And you know, even when there a couple years ago in 16, I bought a horse in Vegas from a guy he is from, you know, northern New Mexico up in the mountains, but still she wasn't used to that kind of cold, and put her on the truck as soon as I bought her and headed for Canada. And it wasn't bad, but then about halfway home it started raining, and then freezing rain, and then it turned to snow. And so yeah, we had to make sure we had to baby her for quite a while. Till it's amazing how fast they'll grow hair though when they're forced into it, I guess.
Well, it would be a huge adjustment. You're going from maybe plus 20 to minus 35, depending on the time of year, and without a winter jacket, you're doing that.
Right. Yeah, like a couple years ago when we got to Vegas, we left home, it was 26 below, and we got there, it was 26 above. So
wow,
those poor horses in the first few days. And that's kind of why you go there that many days in advance when you're there just about a week before the rodeo starts, is just to let them kind of acclimate to the weather. But still at the same time, you're running around with your parka on and it's plus 26. It's tough to shed it. So yeah, it was kind of hard on them there for the few days because they're just pretty much sweating and panting, just standing there in the sun. So yeah, it kind of goes both ways when you're in the middle of December.
Absolutely. So what would you say to the young kids out there who look up to you? They want to be a stock contractor. What does it take to be a stock contractor?
Well, it doesn't matter what you do in life. It takes a little bit of perseverance, a little hard work, and a lot of patience. You know, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. Like I've been very fortunate in my short career being a stock contractor that I've had, you know, quite a bit of success, you know, with the animals I've had. And, you know, I don't take that for granted. You know, they're, you know, like once in a lifetime animals that you get to own, and it's pretty prestigious. And, you know, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like you say, you get to go down the road with a bunch of your buddies and have a good time. So yeah, definitely is something that it's a great lifestyle.
And the rodeo group is a tight community. It's a lot of friends there. Your buddy who might be competing against you is rooting for you at the same time. It's it's a family like no other. There is no other sport out there like it that I have been a part or around. It's crazy. Like I said, when your competitors are cheering for you to win just as much as they're hoping to win.
Yeah, it's very unique, like, and I guess, how we approach it is you're competing against the animal that you're riding, not per se against your buddy. There is a friendly competition and sometimes there's unfriendly competition within it, but for the most part, it is a big family. Like, it's not a very big community, so you know a lot of people all over North America. You get to meet a lot of friends. So yeah, it's kind of neat that way. It's real unique that you don't see that in other sports where, Sidney Crosby's going on a breakaway and Nathan McKinnon's cheering him on, like, hey, go Sid.
Did you see that guy blow by me, eh?
Holy shit, you blew the doors off me again.
You're not cheering for the rider regardless, though, are you?
I mean, for us, it's, it goes both ways. You want them to get the big scores and so when somebody looks at the results and say, holy shit, they were 91 points on, Lunatic Party this weekend. Oh, that must have been a badass ride. And they, so you'll go look it up and see if you can find it. Yeah, there's times where you buck guys off and they had a real good day. It kind of works both ways, but most of your prizes come from the winning rides. So even as contractors, so.
That's a totally different side of it when you think about it. Like the rider always has to ride. If you're rooting for a guy, he's got to finish. And for you, you're either way it could be good, really.
Yeah, we kind of got the best of both worlds, right? If they ride and their high score is great. If they buck off and it looks fantastic and it's a crowd pleaser buck off, then perfect.
Yeah. That was actually my next question is what is the ideal bucking animal? The one that is just about unrideable or the consistent one that's going to give the rider a predictable outing with a high score?
Well, if you take it from the Cowboys' perspective, I mean, they want to get on, the best animals, but there's a fine line between one that's hard to ride and one that's a little more rider friendly. Like, for the 90% of the time, they want to get on a little more rider friendly one, so it's not as much work to get the job done. But when all the chips are on the line, they want the best one in the pen. So like I said, it's kind of a catch-22, and different guys fit different horses, and some guys will really get along with the horse, and other guys like, you like that horse? I always have hell on that horse kind of deal. So sometimes it's personal preference, and sometimes it's just the way the stars align.
Yeah, well, it's crazy how good the genetics are becoming. You see the bruisers of the world, and just the genetics of the animal. They've gotten so good. Man, the Cowboys have it tough. There is no easy out in rodeo.
Oh yeah, like on the bull side, the genetics, it's a fair ways ahead of the horse side, but the horse side we're catching up doing, like you say, doing a lot of AIN and stuff like that, where you're being able to use those mares while you're bucking them, but they're still raising babies out of them just with the reset mare, and you're, with that you kind of get different semen from different studs, so you're not just relying on, I got one stud and I got 15 mares and I got another stud over here with 15 mares and hoping you get some bred. You're kind of trying to make sure they're bred and using a variety of different studs and different bloodlines, so you kind of capitalize on all the great genetics that are out there. So, it's, and now we're, especially with the DNA and tracing everything back, and it's a real neat thing. Like, they have this old Feet Took. He was from Ekalaka, Montana, and he's the one that kind of started the idea of raising bucking horses. Like, he took a Shire and an Arabian and crossed them.
Okay.
And he said, because back then they were like, it was just ranches and you just had your outlaws that they were trying to break. And he said, why don't we start raising them $2? And they said, like, when I was talking to this vet out of Texas, and he said, with all this DNA in now, he said that you can trace 80% of the bucking horses going down the road right now to those 8 original mares that Duke started breeding.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And one thing
I've noticed,
the bucking horses are huge when you see them at the rodeos. They come into those chutes, and it ain't no small horse these guys are getting on. There is some major power there, and I do not think your average fan really realizes what kind of power there is.
Oh yeah, like so you're right up close to them and witness it. That's where the front row seats. You might get dirt kicked on you, but you get damn near like you're being on them. And like I say, if you strap yourself to one, you definitely know how much power they got. When they're ragdolling on the end of your arm, sticking your head in the dirt. And
for sure. So what is the greatest, just a question that comes to mind, the greatest bull you have ever seen yourself, whether it's, one of yours or just something that you've been down the rodeo trail and it's just like the McDavid, you see it and it's like, wow, that's something.
That there's been so many of them over the years, and it's hard to pinpoint one, but I can't even think off the top of my head exactly to pinpoint one. But like kind of the ones we got going down the road right now, like Blue Magic, like he was, bull of the CFR. He was tied for bull of the PBR Canada finals. Went to the NFR. Unfortunately, didn't get out on him the night that he was supposed to buck. He bucked in the chute and kind of had a little chute procedure issue that we didn't get to see him perform there. But we were really excited. That probably one of the first bulls that we owned that had a legit shot at contending for an NFR bucking bull of the NFR kind of deal. So I'm just trying to stump for trying to think of names of the great ones in the past.
I'll throw a couple names at you because I follow bull genetics quite crazy with rough stock, and the Bushwhacker was one that comes to mind for me.
Right.
Magic Train, I think Mickey Mouse was another great bull that we've seen. But Bushwhacker's the one that stands out in my mind that and whether it was the media pumping him up, but man, he had a record that backed his outings as well.
Yeah. Well, the first time I seen Bruiser in right up close and personal, I walked up. We went to the rodeo in Caldwell, Idaho. Powder River has the rodeo, and they invited me there. And I'm walking along, and I'm like, "Why 32? Oh, it's Bruiser." And he's laying by the fence, and I just started scratching him, and he stands up, and he's like, "Hey, oh no, over here!" And it's funny too, because like they go to load him in the chutes, and he was like an old milk cow, like. They were hitting him on the ass like he was just walking like just slower and shit, and then they get him in the bucking chutes, but when they cracked that latch and he leaped out of there, 3 or 4 feet in the air, and you're like, holy cow, I didn't think an animal could do that. And then he comes back and just it's unbelievable that they say, oh, they got to be mean, and you got to hurt them to make them buck and do all this kind of stuff. That's one thing in, us as contractors, we got to do a better job of being proactive in telling our stories and showing people, how we go through the process of raising them and get them to the point they're at where they're professional athletes and that there's, no abuse, that you're not tying their nuts up, but you hear all the different kind of wacky stories that, I'm like, if I tied a rope around your nuts, would you jump around? Probably not.
I think people forget that you guys have to handle them too, so they have to be very workable. I mean, you're working with them all the time, and you have to be able to do that in your business, or they're no good to you.
Right. It puts everybody that works around them in a dangerous position if you don't have some kind of handle on them. Like I'll take my colts and work them in a round pen just so they understand the idea of where you point them and want them to go, and just that handling them and know how to. You can step in front of them to get them to stop, and just little bit of training that way is, what you do with trying to break one to ride. And, a lot of the same principles apply, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people think because they buck and snort and all that they got to be wild as hell. But as you pointed out, like a lot of them are pretty gentle animals behind the scenes.
Yeah, like I got one that he's been to CFR probably 4 or 5 times. Well, as a colt, he was just one of the ones that was real friendly. Then his mom kind of got sick of it, so we were treating her. So we were handling her every day, and now he's a pet. Like, he's almost a pain in the ass when you go to feed, because you're walking with a pail of grain and he's stepping on the back of your heels and tripping on you, and then something else. You're just waiting for the time something bites him on the ass, and then he runs over you because he's got his head over your shoulder, and he's almost a pain in the ass. He's almost too quiet to be around in the herd when you know that they're still somewhat unpredictable at times when you start putting the grain out and they all start getting the pecking order going of who wants to get the grain first.
Absolutely, and I'll have one last question for you, and we won't hold you up after that. But you're in the PBR and the NFR. What is the difference of the two organizations? Obviously, the bull riding is the PBR, but there's different levels. If those out there are unfamiliar, there's the Canadian Tour, and then there's the I don't even know what the big level is in the PBR, but there's all sorts of levels. So do you have to be a member as a stock contractor to both associations, or how does that go?
Yeah, we purchase a card in both associations. Like the PRCA, you have to produce so many rodeos in a year at a certain dollar value to keep certified as a stock contractor in the PRCA and in the CPRA. And then to qualify for Vegas, that's part of your qualification. You have to produce, 3 rodeos with 50,000 added, or 5 rodeos with 30,000 added. And then you got to buck your animals 8 times, and to qualify to go to Vegas, and you got to list when they go. And PBR is a little bit more where you just buy a stock contractor card, and if you got the right bulls, somebody will find you and get a hold of you to come to an event. And you get a reputation of being in Canada and stuff. Like all the guys that are going, and a lot of the Americans come up here too. So everybody kind of gets exposed to the animals, and so that's where a lot of them will come out of. That you get, hey, this guy's got a great bull up here in Canada, and you should try and get him some PBR events. And a lot of times some of these bulls will take that are real hard buckers. We'll take them and sell. There's guys that offer big money to buy them down there to go to the, a lot of the Built Ford Cup or the Cup Series deals, the big one, the TV deals, where that's what those guys are getting on all the time. Where up here, that bull kind of stands out, and you got 1 or 2 that are like him, so it's tough to match him up in a short round. And if you put him in a long round, well, he's too good of a bull, so he kind of doesn't really fit anywhere. So you kind of, sometimes you'll sell them top end bulls off if they're, real rank ones, that you kind of send them down there to play in the big level. And
for sure. So are you allowed, one last question, are you allowed to buck, let's say, if you have a bull in the PBR, that same bull, he can go to some of the PRCA rodeos as well, or do you have to designate kind of?
No, I mean, same thing. It's just all timing on when the events are, whether you can get them to PBRs and get them to the rodeos at the same time. Like, depending on what your goal is with the animal, if you want them to go to the NFR, like I said, you got to get your 8 trips on them, and they need 8 quality outs. So it might take them buck them 10 or 12 times before you get them seen at the right places and the right guys. Whereas PBR, you get invited to a handful of events down south, and majority of it being in Canada. Like with these ones starting in the spring, where February, March, April, you can get them bucked a lot before the rodeo season even starts. So we get the best of both worlds kind of up here in Canada, where you get to do both. Okay. And then throughout the summer, there's always different events where, this one's got enough rodeo trips, we can send them to the PBR this week and vice versa. Oh, this one's been at too many PBRs, you need to go get some rodeo trips in. So it's all part of managing your stock and where the outs were, and got to keep track of that. Just another thing to add to your list of things to do as a contractor.
Lots to do, lots to do. I see there's lots of organization, and I lied about the one last question because one more came up. Like, how many outings would an animal roughly do in a year? Like, what number before you kind of slow them up, or what number are you ultimately looking for?
It depends. It's kind of, the outs are one thing, but it's how many miles are between the events too, right? And how close together you get them stacked up. Bulls handle being bucked more than horses do.
Yeah.
But same thing, if they're standing on a trailer, for 2 or 3 days in a row because you got to go a long ways, you kind of take that into consideration on how many times they buck it. Typically, my horses will have, the good ones that are the NFR caliber, especially the ones that got a name, like 10 times, 10, 11 times probably during the year, maybe 12. Just because, especially just rodeoing in the summer, summer months without going on that winter run, you kind of get them all jammed from, May long till the end of September when the end of the year is. You got to get all your trips in those few months.
Those months.
So it takes some logistics to, hey, we're going to buck them here. They get a week off. We'll buck them here. And then they're going to have, their buck, 2 times this week, and then we'll give them 2 weeks off. But yeah, so it's all kind of where you're going through the summer, that you kind of start planning it before the season even starts, and then there's always some kind of wrench gets thrown in there, something gets hurt somewhere, so you got to lay it off. So then you might have to buck it a few more times, a few weeks in a row kind of deal. Yeah, it all depends. It's never real written in stone how many times you can buck it. And some of the younger animals, you kind of want to get their feet wet enough where they're going down the road, but not
too heavy.
And living on diesel smoke and empty chip bags at the rodeo grounds every week. So.
Well, that's very interesting, and I think a lot of eyebrow raising information there, because people don't think a lot about these animals when they see them at the rodeos. They just think of seeing them coming out of the chutes, and that's all involved. He just takes them, and but they're given the utmost care, like as good a care as we talked to Chance Vegan in the Chuck Wagon Association too, and my horses, they eat first, they do this, and your rodeo stock is no different. The animals first, you second, and we can definitely see the passion and hear the passion from you.
Oh, well, thanks, guys. That's the thing, right? I mean, without them, we're nothing, and they mean the world to us. They're as special to us as our family is, and they are our family, right? And so in order for them to perform, they've got to have the best quality feed in front of them at all times, the best quality care. Like, we trim their feet on a regular basis, deworm them, use the pulse electronic machine to make sure they're not muscle sore, all kinds of different things. I do my own chiropractic on them. And, so there's a whole lot of things behind the scenes that, like I said, we got to tell the story more about, how we do care for them, because like you say, the average layperson just sees them buck at the rodeo and go, oh, wow, that was fantastic. But, know nothing about the behind the scenes stuff. So we got to do a better job of getting that out there and telling our story.
You betcha. Well, I appreciate you coming on tonight and telling your story. And I imagine when an animal of yours has a good outing, it must be shirt popping, just like your kid would be out there having success at whatever they're doing.
Oh, absolutely, it is. That's exactly what it's like. Is this, you're watching your kids because you raised them from babies, and you've got them to this level, and when they perform at that level, and even if it doesn't do good, you're still proud of them. Like they got to that level, and that it's life, right? I mean, not all. If it was if and buts were candies and nuts, it'd be Christmas all the time.
Well, I thank you very much for coming on tonight, sharing all the information, answering all the questions from us, and wish you nothing but success in the 2024 season, and hopefully down the road, I like to go to a lot of rodeos, and if I know you're there, I'd like to hook up and maybe buy a coffee or have a beer with you and sit down and have a few laughs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, anytime you're around and we're around, for sure. We like to start out with the coffee, but we'll finish with the beer.
I like
never
the way
shortage
you
of using
think.
one.
I like the way you think.
And you never know what time of day that might be. It might be from 9:05 to 9:35.
Well, it's like the song. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Right? You can't drink all day unless you have one in the morning.
That's right. That's right.
That's just a fact. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, Jonathan. And we wish you, like I say, nothing but the best, and look forward to catching up with you down the road somewhere.
Yeah.
Thanks,
That
guys.
was-
Appreciate it. Hope to
That's
see you
some
down the road.
crazy information. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah.
I'm just like blown away. Some of the stuff you said just doesn't make any sense. I'm like, it's unreal. It's crazy what you do, how much time you put in on an animal, and nobody really realizes it unless you're in the rodeo world. It's crazy.
Right.
So
yeah, that's the thing, right? And
that's amazing.
So if you guys are ever around, we'll take you on, do all the behind the scenes stuff. We'll stick you in the semi and get you to come along and make some miles with us and get the full experience instead of just the fan experience.
Well, I can even sub you off. I got my class one. My son is a truck driver. He runs his own trucking business. But if I'm hopping in, I don't mind pulling some gears every once in a while myself. So.
Well, that's perfect. Now I know that. I'll be picking you up on the way through.
Yeah, give me a shout anytime. I'd be more than happy to come along.
Sounds good, buddy.
You bet. Well, take care, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right. See you later.
You betcha. Yeah. Well, that was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. Nobody really realizes, like there's two parts to a rodeo. There's the guy that's on the animal.
Yeah.
But all the work that goes into the animal is something that nobody thinks of. I've never thought of it. It's just like they pull them with a semi, they unload them. I always thought it was just one guy produces all the animals for that guy's rodeo, and it's like no big deal. It takes him home and throws him into the pasture when he gets home. No, they're trained athletes.
Trained
from birth.
I think that is the key word, is they're trained. Where do you think the normal person going to the rodeo, that's just how they are? No, there's years of training that have gone into that.
And thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And it's super. I can relate to him totally because, of course, I come from the farm background and stuff, but
and horses
and stuff. But so you raise the animal and you don't know what you got until you got it, and that's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. Yeah,
you have to have a true love for it, and you can tell Jonathan does. Like when he talks about his stock, there's a smile on his face, and you can just tell he loves what he does.
You don't do anything to do with rodeo unless you love it. Because the sport is ridiculous. It's painful. It's expensive. It's the organizational skills that he would need for the amount that he's dealing with and the multiple different rodeos he's associated with, and the difference of borders, provinces, and everything, and the timelines.
Coordinating.
I could never do that.
Coordinating. Like
football offensive coordinator knew a lot. Bullshit.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him handle that schedule.
Yeah. Bull here, horse there. Got to be out after that. We got to hit the road to go here, and you got to have trucks and drivers.
And like you said, you're keeping track of the miles that are on those legs.
Yeah.
For the hauling, plus the mounted box, plus all this, everything. No, thank you. I'm glad that he does it, and we've got a show to watch.
And but all I can say is a Saskatchewan boy.
That's right.
A success story. Good on you, Jonathan.
Not afraid to work.
Not afraid to work. And that was awesome. Awesome interview. So we're going to be signing off for about 15 minutes. Join us back on YouTube Live as we got Robin Silvernagel
coming up in, like 20 minutes.
In about 20 minutes. So tune in about 20 minutes. We'll have Robin Silvernagel on. And once again, thank you to Jonathan from Outlaw Buckers. That was awesome.
That was awesome.
You betcha. So
great show.
You betcha. Tune in about 20 minutes. We'll be right back at you.
Cheers, guys. Oh.